Eu, como já disse, sou o Simão Gonçalves Toko que estou falando convosco. A todos os nativos do território português, no Congo português, nós somos portugueses e não somos estrangeiros. Embora entre nós alguns receberam uma educação estrangeira, não quer isso dizer que sejam considerados ou sejam chamados estrangeiros. Portanto, eu apresento-me a vós, meus amigos portugueses.
Simao Toko was a black African man born in 1918, and he had superhuman abilities similar to Jesus Christ. He was healing people, and he even summoned cherubim and seraphim angels to help defeat the Belgian army. As crazy as this may sound, this is a true story. We'll get into the other unbelievable superhuman things he did in a bit. The elite powers do not want the world knowing about this man because he was the first of many more Messiah-like figures to emerge. In the 1960s, Simao Toko said more people like him would come and that the elites wouldn't be able to stop us. It is believed Simao Toko was the first of the 144,000 described in the Bible. He was healing people and performing supernatural miracles. Some of the superhuman qualities Simao Toko had was regenerating after attempts on his life, even if he was completely eradicated. One time doctors heard of the rumors of his mystical abilities of being immortal, and they removed his heart surgically to see if it was true. He woke up from the operating table saying, "Why are you persecuting me like this? Give me my heart back," leaving the doctors completely shocked. Simao Toko was reaching people with his message, and the cabal attempted to silence him for lack of better words. Once they found out he had Jesus-like abilities, but no attempts on his life succeeded, and he just kept coming back. A man who couldn't be unalived. This is a true story that has several first-hand accounts and physical evidence that this man was immortal as well. There was a plan to unalive this immortal man named Simao Toko in the ocean. The reason there were so many attempts on Toko's life is because the elites didn't want him here because he was a Messiah-like figure performing miracles and began gaining too much power in their eyes. He was a prophet of God. In the plane with Simao Toko sat a Catholic priest and members of Salazar's secret police known as PIDEDGS, including the pilot and co-pilot. Their mission was to fly out over the Atlantic Ocean and, after about an hour's distance, push Simao Toko into the deep sea. The moment the PIDE agents rose to subdue him and carry out their plan, Simao Toko stood up and ordered the plane to stop. The aircraft stopped in mid-air. It stood still, not advancing an inch, nor rose or fell backward. The crew was stricken by panic. The priest could hardly breathe and hoarsely huffed out desperate prayers. Simao lifted his eyes and hands towards the heaven, and after a short prayer he ordered the plane to move again. At once the plane started moving. The angels fought against soldiers in Africa. The supernatural man that emerged from the Kongo named Simao Toko summoned 1,000 angels to help defeat oppressive soldiers. On January 4, 1959, several witnesses attest to seeing multiple cherubim and seraphim angels holding off the Belgian army. Citizens of Leopoldville saw an army of about 1,000 angels, which they described as being non-terrestrials. They explained that these angelic creatures had very muscular bodies. These human-looking beings, with supernatural powers, were demonstrating an extraordinary force. For example, a witness saw one of them on the road sweeping a 5-ton truck with one hand. Belgian soldiers opened fire on these angels, but to no effect. The colonial army was in a panic and disorder. The angels disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared. According to the African natives that day, Simao Toko had unleashed his army.
Simao Toko immortal gene.
When you talk about the word X-Men, the X represents Photo 51. Photo 51 was a picture taken in 1951 by Rosalind Franklin and Raymond Gosling that provided the picture that allowed the structure of DNA to be, discovered. The same year Photo 51 was taken was the year that Henrietta Lacks transitioned, and her cervix was taken from her, unknowingly to her and her family, by a doctor, because she was the first cell that they were able to document that was a mortal cell line. And an immortalized cell line is a group of cells that can continue to replicate infinitely. So all the biology books, mitochondria, cells, blood that you know to this day, that you studied in school, has everything to do with the studies of these HeLa cells, Henrietta Lacks cells, that they got in 1951.
And one of the chapters was Nikola Tesla, Pete Peterson, and Nikola Tesla, Black Ops.
Yep.
Is one of them is about Black Jesus, where the Son of Being appearing in Africa.
Yep.
And I just want to know if you know any more information you would share with us.
Yeah, the Black Jesus story. The Black Jesus story was probably one of the most shocking things I ever heard. It came from my insider Jacob. I call him that in the book, who actually was working for the Rothschilds and still does, and also is a whistleblower who doesn't really do what they want, but continues to work for them because he feels like there's some very serious extraterrestrial threats to Earth, and that what they're doing is very necessary to protect us. So the story goes that in the 1960s, there was a black man in Africa who came in with abilities complementary to those of Jesus. And he was performing miracles. He was starting to get people to listen to what he had to say. And the cabal tried to kill him, and, you know, they could shoot him in the head and his skull would just regenerate and the flesh would grow back, and he was fine. The crazy story that I heard, and remember, I was told at the time that if I disclosed this, that I would be killed, and I ended up putting it in the book anyway. The story was that this guy, you know, they finally said, okay, we're going to bring you to the United Nations and share your message with the world. Let's get you on this flight. They bring him on this flight, and instead of bringing him to the United Nations, they shot him repeatedly, and then actually had some kind of meat grinder device, and basically like a bandsaw, I guess, and sawed up his body into a whole bunch of pieces, put him in these very like radioactive shielded containers, and then had all these fighter jets dock with the plane and fly his body parts to all corners of the world, where then these containers turned them into ash. And they thought that maybe this would defeat him, like that his body somehow, the tissue was necessary. So if they destroyed all the tissue in all these places across the world, maybe they could defeat him. Well, he then regenerated in their offices and was fully fine, fully intact. But the sad part is that he said, you know, you guys so badly do not want me to be here that I am not going to be able to do any more. You're going to get what you want, but bear in mind that in the future, many others like me will be coming, and when they do, you will not be able to stop us.
Netflix fans are so hooked on a new series that they're threatening to delete the app if it gets canceled. Set in South London, the show follows 5 ordinary individuals who suddenly find themselves with superpowers. They face everyday challenges, but their story intensifies when one of them must bring the group together to save the woman he loves. This series is called Supacell.
Do you realize what Supacell is? That's not a series. That's not a series. You know what that is? That's an observation. That is an experiment. See, look, my mom used to always tell me this. She said, the message is in the movie, get the picture. The message is in the movie, get the picture. So when you look at Supacell, notice it's called super. Super means to be superior, supreme, and a cell is a small thing that has organs in it, or organelles, right? So Supacell is this series based off of black people, so-called black people. Can't be nobody else, because only so-called black people get sickle cell anemia. This is only a so-called disease that's prone to us, which I believe is truly a super power gene, but we've been made to think that this is something wrong with us, right? But in this specific series, anybody that had the sickle cell trait or had sickle cell, they had the ability to react with their environment and be activated to have supernatural powers. You see that? And guess what happened? All of the people with sickle cells were kidnapped by a white government, and they were either killed, experimented on, or they had MK Ultra done to them, and they came and they worked for the government agent to go get other people that had sickle cell anemia. Now peep the basis of it though. All of them was gangbangers, selling drugs, drug users in the hood. They did it all in poverty states. Same thing as cloning Tyrone. The same exact, look, they showing us this stuff in the movies, man. But like I was talking about with toxicity, we already went through that. Deficiency. A lot of us are very deficient in minerals, phytonutrients, macronutrients, carboxylic acid, not amino acids. All right. Now what happened is we are adapting now. We're adapting to this new simulation. The sun is fake. The water is contaminated. The air is contaminated. Earth have lost all its minerals. Now our next stage is what? Mutation. It's coming. The glow up coming, man, and it can't be stopped. And the reason why is because you cannot destroy melanin and you cannot destroy carbon. You can change the way it interact with itself in the environment, but you cannot get rid of it. We don't die, we multiply. We Elohim children, man.
You got to watch this movie because it's basically talking about the activation of the non-ether energy and the rise of the 144,000. So, as I was telling you before, the guy in the movie, his main character was named Michael, but he had a higher self. Your higher self is your Zohar body. Your Zohar body is connected to the epikinetic body, eco body, gematria body, and the electromagnetic body. So when you tap into your Akashic records to activate those abilities, that's connected to the epigenetics, to where you're able to manipulate the etheric network by way of the plasma waters that's connected to the source of energy of the electromagnetic processing of the black sun, which is also known as a supersonic battery that has the ability to manipulate the polarity consciousness of the liquid crystal polarization, which is based on liquid crystal technology that is extracted from the Saturn moon matrix. So that is the holographic projection when you understand subatomic energy. The subatomic energy is manipulated by the quintessential alchemical element, the fifth element, and the fifth element is the non-ether energy. The non-ether energy is when you're able to manipulate the space-time continuum. When you're able to do that, that's when you're able to tap into your powers because light travels at 186,000 miles per square feet to where you can tap into the gamma radiation during the apex of consciousness because we at the sun cycle. When you understand that we in the sun cycle, you understand the conservation of energy. The conservation of energy is the first law of thermodynamics. When you understand the law of thermodynamics, that's when you're able to transmute heat into electrical energy. The electrical energy amplifies the gamma radiation that works in tandem with the carbon body. The carbon body is activated by the dodecahedron that manipulates everything in the hexahedron. The hexahedron is everything that's connected to third density that is basically the infrastructure of the demiurge. When you understand that phenomenon, that's when you reach the apex of consciousness by activating the heart chakra. The heart chakra in itself is a luminescence energy that connects you right back to source. The source is you. The source is the spirit of Melchizedek. The source is the epitome of the Christ consciousness. Because as I was telling you before, God is the highest essential of the mind, which is the elements and matter to express itself. So when you emit that light, you activate the heart chakra. The heart chakra is the seat of the soul when you understand Kemetic spirituality. So that's why superheroes, they always put the emblem on their chest because that's how they draw their light. They draw their light by way of the activation of the heart chakra. So that's what this movie is all about.